The two parables in Matthew 25 were Jesus' attempt to teach his disciples how to wait. He encourages them and us, as far as I'm concerned, to wait well, to wait with our minds and our hearts focused on eternity, and to not to be distracted by the cares of life and of the world, but more importantly, to steward our gifts properly while we wait. God's kingdom runs contrary to the kingdom of the world, and its cultures are so different from the cultures of the world. So it's important for us to ensure that we don't zone out and that we don't get carried away by the things of the world, because to be honest, most of them don't matter in the kingdom of heaven. Now, in the parable of the 10 virgins, the oil of the lamp or the oil in the lamps hold significance. Now, in the scriptures, oil is always used to describe or depict the presence of the Holy Spirit. So the 5 virgins who had full oil would represent the people who are filled with the Holy Spirit, with the presence of the Holy Spirit. And like those 5 virgins, the ones that Jesus is coming for. Huh? That good English, no? Well, we who are filled with the Spirit are the ones that the Holy Spirit, that Jesus is coming for when he returns. So for me, I feel like that's a litmus test of your readiness, right? Because them that's filled with the Spirit are the sons of God, and they do the will of the Lord. So there you go. Now, in the parables of the talents, in the parable of the talents, it's a call to steward our gifts wisely while we wait. When I was younger, I used to think that the talents were like literal talents, but here, obviously, it relates to money, because the talents were, a term used to describe a certain amount of money that equated to a year's wage or so back then. But I can't still help but think about it as my talents too, my skills, my gifts, the things that the Lord has given me. So I don't necessarily think about it as money. I just feel as if everything that the Lord has given to me is what I should be using and trying to, double. Now, what's interesting about the story for me, reading it again afresh, was the third servant. Now, the third servant accused Jesus of being accused God of being, well, God, obviously we know the master represents God, that, right? Accused him of being a hard man, an unfair man. But from all indications of the story, he wasn't, because which master would give his servants the things that he gave? And then based on his responses to the first two, you'd know that he wasn't. So this servant, to me, I'm inclined to think, was probably rebellious, and perhaps he didn't even know his master very well. And so he misinterpreted his motives and didn't view him correctly. Now, this is true of many of us that don't take the time to get to know God. Some people have a different perception of God, perhaps based on their experiences or the experiences of others or the things that they've seen around them, or sometimes even based off of secondhand or reported speech, right? If you don't take time to know God, then you won't know him properly, right? And the other two servants, they obviously knew their master and they trusted him and they wanted to please him. That was why they took the actions that they did and doubled the money that he gave them. Now, in the parable of the sheep and the goats, the sheep were obviously God's people, and the goats were not. So God will separate the sheep from the goats. The sheep on the left, the goats on the right, and the goats are those who are going to hell with the devil and his angels. Now, here's what I learned about God. My hashtag getting to know God lesson from reading this book. God had prepared his kingdom for us from the foundation of the world, and he has given us an invitation into that kingdom. How do I know? In verse 34, the king said, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. All the righteous who are doing his will here on earth can look forward to his..." Oh, sorry. I read that. So that was Jesus's quote. End quote. End quote in since the creation of the world. So basically, all the righteous who are doing God's will here on earth um, are can look forward to His kingdom. So, are you one of them? Are you one of the people feeding the hungry and the thirsty, providing hospitality to the strangers, clothing those in need, caring for the sick, and visiting the prisoners? Remember that Jesus was telling them that them that do it for the least of his brothers will do it unto him. So we're called essentially to be God's hands and feet here on earth. And I guess the admonishment here that I got was, don't delay in doing good and don't get weary in doing good, and God will bless you as you do. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you've learned something new just like I have, and I look forward to sharing with you tomorrow, God willing.